Today, the essential question that we're going to focus on is what factors affect population growth. Now, there are a few different ways we can describe population. One of the terms is geographic range, which is the area inhabited by a population. So basically, the location where certain organisms live. Another term is population density, and that refers to the number of individuals per unit area. So how much organisms are living in a particular area. The other term is population distribution, and this refers to how individuals in a population are spaced out. And there's some terms used to describe the population distribution. These terms include random, uniform, and clumped. Random being that the individuals are randomly distributed in an area. Uniform means that there's like a regular pattern to how the organisms are arranged in an area. And clump meaning that the organisms are clumped up or they're basically packed in a particular area. The growth rate refers to how fast a population grows or declines. And the age structure refers to the number of males and females of each age a population contains. Now, there's also some factors that affect the population size. Some of these factors include the birth rate, the death rate, also known as the mortality, immigration, which refers to the process in which individuals move into an area, and immigration, which refers to the process in which individuals move out of an area. Okay, so make sure you understand the distinction between immigration and immigration. Once again, immigration meaning to move into an area, and immigration meaning moving out of an area. Now, another concept related to population growth is exponential growth. And this refers to growth patterns in which the individuals in a population are reproducing at a constant rate. So you can take a look at this example here of this graph indicating organisms that are increasing at an exponential rate. And then there's also logistic growth. This refers to growth patterns in which a population grows slowly at the beginning and then it stops following a period of exponential growth. This is a little bit more common. Phase one of logistic growth is exponential growth, where the organisms are growing at a constant rate. Phase two, the growth starts to slow down a little bit. And then in phase three, the growth stops. And it usually stops because of this idea of the carrying capacity. The carrying capacity being the maximum number of individuals of a particular species that a particular environment can support. So in other words, there's only but so much resources in an environment. There's limited resources, whether it's food or habitat, space, etc. So because of that, the environment is only going to be able to maintain a maximum number of individuals or organisms. And that maximum number is referred to as the carrying capacity. And then over here we have a graph of the carrying capacity, of logistic growth of a particular fish. So you see here that the fish at some point is going to grow exponentially in this region. Then the growth is going to start to slow down. And then there's going to be a pretty stable area of the number of organisms of this particular fish. And this region of the graph is referred to as the carrying capacity. Now, there's some limiting factors that are going to determine how many organisms can survive in an area, can thrive in an area. Um, and these factors, they control population growth. And some of these factors include things like competition between organisms, predation, or the number of predators that are in the area. So that's going to definitely affect the number of organisms in that area. Also, parasitism and disease. So if there's a lot of parasites, or if there's some sort of disease that strikes the organism, that's going to affect the number of individuals of that species. And also unusual weather. So if there's any dramatic change in weather or climate, that will definitely affect the population of that species. And along the lines, natural disasters such as earthquakes or tsunamis or something of the sort will also affect population growth. Now, these limiting factors are broken up into categories. So they're types of limiting factors. There's something referred to as density dependent limiting factors, and these are factors that depend on population density. So some examples of things that are density dependent or dependent on how many of these organisms there are is competition. So if there are a lot of number of organisms there that compete, that's definitely going to affect the population of those organisms. Predation is also a density dependent limiting factor. If there are a large number of predators in the environment, then that also is going to affect the number of organisms in that area. And then also herbivory, which refers to the number of herbivores in an area. That's going to affect the number of plants, let's say, in an area. And then parasitism and disease would also be density dependent limiting factors. And then we also have stress from overcrowding. So if there's too many of these or too much of these organisms, that just creates just a lot of space. It's a lot of crowding. So there's the resources are gonna be very limited, and it's gonna be stretched. So we would refer to this also as a density dependent limiting factor. The other type of limiting factor include the density independent limiting factor, which means that this does not depend on the population density. It doesn't depend on how many of these organisms there are in an area. And some of these would include something like hurricanes or any other types of unusual weather. This doesn't depend on how many organisms there are. If there's a hurricane or any unusual weather, it's going to affect the organisms in that area. Other things like droughts, so severe lack of water in an area. Once again, this is density independent. It has nothing to do with the number of organisms, the population of the organisms in the area. Other things like floods and other natural disasters like earthquakes, wildfires, which we see a lot of in places like California. Okay, then there's human population growth, which is very interesting. So human population growth has been exponential over the past 200 years for a lot of reasons. Some of them include improved nutrition. So because we know a lot about, like what foods are healthy, people generally speaking, tend to eat a little bit better. So as a result of this is causing human population to grow exponentially. Also because there's improved sanitation, we have In a lot of just countries like the U.S., we have systems, garbage trucks that come in and clean the streets and take the trash out, which means that there's less disease that are running rampant because generally speaking, the area tends to be a little bit cleaner. And then also there's just been improved medicine, which is also increasing the life expectancy of humans. So as a result, population growth is increasing overall exponentially. In healthcare, people have a little bit more access to doctors and dentists. You can get checkups, and so once again, as a result, people are living longer, and causing population growth to just increase overall for humans. Okay, so what you're going to do now is work on a couple of problems, some Regents questions, some problems, some old Regents questions. So the teacher's going to provide this now. Okay, thanks.